محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين واللعنة الدائمة الباقية لأعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وأعطيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر. صلاة
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Keeping in mind with the guidance that we have from the 6th Imam about ziyarat of waris regarding Imam Hussain alayhi salam, there is a passage where Imam says, after salam and salutations, he says, now acknowledge his accomplishment. What did Imam Hussain alayhi salam do? And one of the first things we are asked to say, Ashhadu annaka, that I bear witness that you indeed aqamta salah, established prayers. Now when we talk about this, I wanted to take this opportunity today to talk about the namaz and the prayers on the day of Ashura in Karbala. It's actually an element of the mazlumiyyat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And to understand that dimension of his mazlumiyyat and being oppressed from different angles, one is the issue of salah. You see, if you read the Quran from the beginning to the end, you will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in about 33 places gives us the command to do the prayers. In different forms. It says, Aqimus salat, Aqimis salat, Aqimna salat, plural, singular, male, feminine, masculine forms. Or when he describes the mu'mineen, he says, Alladhina yuqimuna salat. Believers are those who establish prayers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it comes to the command, He actually gives that more than 30 times. But you go and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how do you do the prayers? From our human point of view, it would have been easier maybe just to give the order once or twice and then give the method. Are there 3 prayers in a day or 5 prayers? Yes, the timings are there in the Quran, but you will see there is no ayat in the Quran which gives you 5 separate times. And I don't mean to say that's wrong. We do it 5 separate times or 3 prayers 3 times a day. It's fine, but what I'm saying is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the timing, uses the words like ruku and sujood sometimes. He says, do sajda, bow down like those who are doing the ruku. But the proper method, whether the dawn prayer is 2 rakat, Zuhr is 2, 4, and Asr is 4, or Isha is 4, and Maghrib is 3, this is not there in the Quran. What do you recite when you stand up for prayers? What do you recite when you go into ruku, into sajda? And there is a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't talk about it. And the reason is simple, is that He wanted us, He was forcing us to go to the Prophet. Those people who think that the Quran is sufficient, this would be the example. Quran only gives you the command for prayers. It doesn't give you the method of prayer. You are forced to go to the Prophet, and he will tell you how to do the prayers. Now, that is the main reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't talk about the methods. Not that there was limitation or when you are a writer and you want to publish a book, you give it to a publisher and they will say, okay, there's a limitation of 300 pages, not more than that. Nobody was controlling Allah's, book and saying, oh, it's good, it's becoming too lengthy, short it down. No. If he wanted to do it, he would have done it. But he doesn't do it in a way to force us that I give you the command for prayers in the Quran, you go to my messenger and learn the method from him. This is where we talk about the Quran and the Sunnah. We don't believe in this slogan of Hasbuna Kitabullah, that the book of Allah is sufficient for us. No, that is the Umari thought, not a Shi'i thought. And one of the examples I would like to give you that why, if Allah wanted to do, He could have given us the example. It's not limitation of the book or the size, Interestingly, the same Allah who only gives us the command for the daily prayers doesn't give us the method. There's something we have to do every day of our life. When it comes to a special prayer, He actually goes into detail. If you go to Surah number 4, Surah Nisa, ayat number 102, you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the prayers which is known as Salatul Khawf. Salatul Khawf means a prayer which is recited in an emergency situation, which doesn't occur all the time. But that salat which is rare, Allah gave the method. The salat which is to be done every day, He doesn't talk about it. And to connect that with Imam Hussain alayhi salam, let me read to you this ayat from Surah Nisa, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet, وَإِذَا كُنْتَ فِيهِمْ فَأَقَمْتَ لَهُمُ الصَّلَاةِ, basically talking about the situation in a war situation, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O Muhammad, when you are among them, among your companions, and you lead the prayers for them, فَلِتَقُمْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْهُمْ مَعَكَ وَلِيَأْخُذُوا أَسْلِحَتَهُمْ. Basically, divide your companions into two groups. One should join you in the prayers and carry their arms with them, not leaving out there, which can be taken away by the enemies later on, when you are doing the prayers. So half of your companions will come with you, and you will lead them in the prayers. فَإِذَا سَجَدُوا, and once they go into the first rak'ah, and then they do the sajda, فَلِيَكُونُ مِنْ وَرَائِكُمْ. Then for the second rak'ah, they will stand up and continue the second rak'ah. Salatul Khawf is only 2 rak'ah, whether in the city or outside of the city. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, once they have done the first rak'ah, then they should fast, complete the second rak'ah, and then go to relieve their companions who are in the front, continuing the battle, or actually, monitoring the situation that the enemy doesn't come at the time of Salah. And the fellows who were there, guarding the Muslim army, they will join the Prophet in the second rak'ah. And so the Prophet is supposed to recite a longer surah in that. Until they join him, then for them that will be first rak'ah, for the Prophet it will be the second rak'ah, and he will conclude that. The point that we see here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, goes out of his way to talk about Salatul Khawf, which is rare. I think, in our life, I don't think there is anyone who has gone through it. Probably many people don't even know there is a Salat, not a Salatul Khawf, which is to be recited in emergency, which is just like Qasr prayers, which you do when they travel. But Allah has that in Surah Al-Nisa, ayat number 102. Now, going to Karbala, the sixth Imam says that, one of the accomplishments of Imam Hussain alayhi salam is قَدْ أَقَمْتَ الصَّلَاةِ. You established the prayers. The prayers were already there, established by the Prophet. It continued even in the days of the Prophet and even after him. But the sixth Imam is saying to remember the way he did the prayers in Karbala. It became an example, a unique example, never to be forgotten ever. And on the day of Ashura, we can say that Imam Hussain alayhi salam, his status of being oppressed or mawloom, one of the elements of that was that when the time of Zohar happened, midday prayers, and one of his companions by the name of Abu Thumama al-Saydawi, he asked the Imam that, look at their desire and their wish. They are in the middle of a battle. Yet he says that I wish to have to do one salat behind you once more. The time has come. And Imam looked up and he said, yes, you are true. And may Allah, raise you among those who remember the salah. And then Imam asked the Yazidi forces that, it's time for prayers. Let's, stop the hostilities, do our prayers first. And Hasim bin Namir, one of the commanders of the Yazidi forces, basically responded by saying that, his words were very hurtful. Where he says, oh Hussein, why you will pray? Because your prayers will not be accepted. He's talking to somebody, who is part of the Ahlul Bayt. When you do your tashahhud in namaz, whether you're Shia or Sunni, Sufi or Wahhabi, it doesn't matter. Everyone, all Muslims do the tashahhud, and there they say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. In Ali Muhammad, you can have a lot of discussion. Who is Ali Muhammad? But there is no one on the face of the earth, those days or even now, can deny that Hussein was part of Ali Muhammad. And somebody whose name is there, this Mal'oon says that, your prayers will not be acceptable. And that's where, Habib went and attacked him and eventually he was killed himself. But even then, Imam, under those circumstances where the enemies did not give them time. So what does he do? According to this ayat of Quran, in chapter 4, ayat number 102, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, divide your forces into two. One will continue the battle, the other will do the salah, first rakat with you. And they will go and relieve their friends after doing the second rakat on their own, and they will come and join you. But Hussein ibn Ali on that day was so much room. By the time of Dhuhr, he didn't have enough numbers that he could divide them into two groups. So what does he do? He still, intends to do Salatul Jama'at, congregational form of the prayer. He didn't say, because of this emergency, just go and do your own prayer separately. No. He did the Jama'at prayers, and he asked two individuals, Zuhair and Sa'id, to protect the congregational prayer of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And there, you can realize that the enemy, when they saw that, okay, now they are doing Jamaat prayers, they did not even respect that. They started even, targeting them. And you can realize who was the main target of the enemy, even when the Salat is going on. It was Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Zuhair basically was, using the shield to prevent any arrow coming to the people who were praying, small group behind Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But Sa'id had dedicated himself to protect the Imam. And because Imam became the main target, there were more arrows coming to Imam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he used his shield, to prevent them, to take it on the shield so that it doesn't reach the Imam. But a time came where the arrows came so fast and so many of them that the shield was not sufficient. And that's where he uses the shield as well as his body as a shield in order to protect Imam Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. By the time Imam finished the prayers, Sa'id looked back and he saw Imam has done his prayers. That is where he actually fell down on the ground. Till then he was still, bearing the pain, standing upright so that he can protect the Imam. And when Imam comes to him, the words of this companion Sa'id was that Allah, you be witness that I have taken this, this hurt and the pain in order to protect the children of Rasulullah. And then he asked Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Hal wafaytu? O Imam, have I fulfilled my duty or not? And Imam said, indeed you have done, and you are going in the same path that I will be also joining you later on. And this is where we see that, that namaz of the day of Ashura, that's why we say, Ashhadu annaka qad aqamta as-salat, because that is something we have to keep in mind. That Imam Hussein alayhi salam, even in that difficult time, he had this option of asking his companions to do their prayers individually in whatever safe area that they could find. But he still wanted to do that Salat al-Jama'ah to show the importance of the prayers and especially of the congregational prayer. And this is where we have to realize, Karbala is actually a paradigm for values of Islam. It's not only just one single issue. There are so many different things from different companions and martyrs that we can see and relate that to our daily activities and challenges. And one of them is the issue of, being serious about our prayers, and especially doing the prayers on time whenever we can. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, increase our tawfiqat to understand the message of Hussein ibn Ali and keep us among the followers of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.